So we know we're going to launch into a revision and we're going to look at our story again. Here's some of the things, the major pitfalls that I want you to start to consider. So, repetitive words. Subconsciously, there are words that you will gain a great deal of affection for, and you will keep putting them in your story. Words like obviously or incredibly, or it's often some descriptive word, and you keep using it over and over again. It's just something that sort of latches in your subconscious. So go back through and make sure that you take them out. If you've used the same word more than once in a sentence or more than twice in the same paragraph, you have used it too much. All those cliches that you hear in your life, they also find their way into your writing. So nothing is as fluffy as a cloud or sharp as a tack or smart as a whip. Sports is, of course, huge with them. Every coach in the world's using, it's crunch time, you can't teach that, the clock's the enemy, whatever. Get rid of them. Write originally. Write in ways that you have not read before. Put words together in a way that sounds like you, not like everybody else. We also want to make sure that we are showing, not just telling. So, it's not gut check time. I need you to show me exactly what's going on that makes it significant. And that means when you're showing me, you're going to eliminate adverbs and adjectives, certainly the overuse of them, because if you're describing it, I don't need you to be modifying the nouns and the verbs like that. Remember that too many big words are going to make your reader have to work too hard. I once had a writer who used the word Lilliputian after the Lilliputians in Gulliver's Travels, which of course meant small, but there's a lot of other ways to show us exactly how small something is without using a word like that. We talked a little bit before, the misuse of words, affect, defect, imply, infer. Now we really need to start looking at your spelling errors. Make sure everything is spelled correctly. Most importantly, people's names, proper nouns, places, but even that, your punctuation in its or, any conjunction, contractions, all of these things, we have to make sure that they are correct. And look through here and make sure that you're not writing subjectively. So I don't want to see your opinion in this. I want the opinion of your sources. So make sure if you're starting to show your opinion about how you feel about it, you're going to start to weed that out of your writing. Say what you mean and mean what you say. There is a place for jargon. If you're writing for a magazine I love is Correction Officers Magazine. That's a terrific publication, but you have to write in the lingo of correction officers. The same thing applies when you're writing for a lot of trade publications. So those people who write for agriculture are writing for different animal publications. You're going to use certain terms that other people will understand. The term whelp may not mean anything to you, but it does to people who breed dogs. So, it's important that you put that jargon in when you need it, but that you leave it out when it's just something that you know and that the other readers will not know. We don't even consciously think about sexist language, but we don't use things like weatherman anymore or businessman. It's businesswoman if it's a woman or businessman if it's a man. So, be as specific as you possibly can. Try to avoid also the idea of reading someone's mind. So you can't say that the mayor felt something or that the senator was angry about something. You could say the mayor said he felt this way or the senator demonstrated in some way he was angry, but we can't read people's minds. Partial quotes, that's when you see the example here, some writers, and then you put in quotes, quote only so much and quote as they need. Try to avoid those. They're really hard to follow, and especially if you do too many of them in a row, your reader has no idea what's going on. So if you find that you need to put in one word for impact and put it in quotes, okay, but for the most part you're going to be paraphrasing those facts, supporting them with quotes, and give us a full quote. The same thing, look for redundancies, so true fact, close proximity, plain and simple, all of those things are redundant. And your tenses and the use of pronouns, something that we all do incorrectly. So from a tense standpoint, make sure that if you are writing in the past tense, you stay there. If you're writing in the present tense, you stay there. So if your publication uses the word says instead of said, as a magazine I write for does, you're going to have to go through and make sure that all of your story reflects that present tense. So grammar mistakes are things that we all do every day when we're speaking, but when it comes to writing, we can't afford those mistakes anymore. So, some of the big ones that we want to catch up with are I or me. How do you know which one to use? And remember, take the other subject out of the sentence. So my brother and me went to the store. That doesn't sound right. My brother and I went to the store. So I went to the store. The same idea with pronouns, their or its. This especially becomes tricky when when you have a group and you're not sure whether that's a collective entity to become singular. So something like the FBI changed their policies is something that we'll read all the time, but it's actually the FBI changed its policies because the group is singular. Ellipses, we use those when we take something out of a quote. It's those three dots that you'll often see. A lot of people will use them to indicate a pause, but that's not actually accurate. So if you want to put a pause in your writing, it indicates someone's thinking or they hesitate before they respond or in the middle of a response, use what's called an M dash, which in Word is 2 hyphens, and then when you either hit return or do the next space bar, then it will turn into a long dash, and that's an M dash. Avoid exclamation points as best you can. They're really unnecessary in most writing. And then the idea of commas, putting commas where they belong. The example I've given here, I'm sure you've seen 1,000 times. Let's eat, Grandpa, versus let's eat, Grandpa. So it's important that we put commas to indicate pauses, but you put too many, then your reader's stopping and starting all over the place. But we have to also put commas so that we indicate when we're dealing with a singular entity. Her husband, Brian, if I put her husband Brian with no comma between husband and Brian, that indicates that he's actually one of many husbands that she has. So her husband, comma, Brian, comma, indicates singular. So, these are just a few of the topics that come up a lot. I really encourage you to check out the videos on iTunes U that talk about some other grammar mistakes that we make in a pretty fun and entertaining way, recognizing we all make these mistakes, but once we make them for writing that other people are going to read, they're going to become a lot more noticeable.